We're back with another Beginning Sewer Chronicles, and today we're making a cardigan. For a while now, I haven't been having an urge to sew with patterns just because I usually get Etsy patterns, and I've just gotten so tired of the process of printing out a pattern, taping it together, and then cutting it. So I invested in buying a projector, and this is my first project ever using the projector. Two things to know here: I have a USB-C adapter hub that's connected to my computer. I also had to buy an HDMI cord that connected to my projector and the USB-C hub. Calibrating the projector for sewing is actually pretty easy. You go to patternprojector.com. You type in the measurements of your mat, and then all you have to do is drag those corners to match your real size mat. And then once that matches, it's calibrated. Now we can move on to actually adding the pattern. So for this particular pattern, it actually came with like a pattern projector sizing, which was super cool because this is the first project I've ever done with a pattern, and it was made specifically for projectors. In the projector PDF, there are a bunch of different sizes, so you're going to make sure that you deselect all of them and only have the one that is your exact size selected. In this case, I believe I was the 36. After you do that, it's time to lay down your fabric. I started with the back piece because the back piece has to be cut on the fold, so I folded my fabric and then cut the back piece first. The one thing I'll definitely be investing in that I wish I had during this project were weights, because the fabric is gonna move around. I also played around with inverting the pattern colors to figure out what stood out most to me. Okay, y'all, I just cut the back. Yeah. So at this point, I had a light bulb moment and I pulled out my fabric pen. This pen fades away when you wash it, so you can mark up your fabric if you want to. And I decided to just go ahead and trace out the pattern onto my fabric. After I did this, y'all, I swear it made everything so much easier. I didn't have to worry about stepping in front of the projector and then it possibly messing up what I cut out. I was on a roll after this. This is so simple. It's so simple. Let me turn the projector off. This was so easy to do. And then when I added the pen, ooh, chef's kiss. Okay? But it probably took me about 35 minutes just because I was scared and it was my first time. But really, this could take you like 20, depending on the project. After cutting out the pattern, I started on my serger. But of course, you gotta start with a test scrap piece. Period. And here's the moment we've all been waiting for to actually start sewing the project. The Etsy pattern comes with a YouTube video that I just followed along with. Now it is in French, and I don't know French, but there are American caps. But you know, sometimes when you're trying to translate something into a different language and so the translation is a little bit off, that's how the captions are. But I was still able to understand for the most part. But this project itself is fairly simple. This is going on my second year of sewing, so doing something like this wasn't too hard. Now, the only part that was difficult was the buttonholes, because I have this old school buttonhole attachment that I've never used before that my sewing instructor gave to me. So I had to do a whole bunch of research to figure out how to attach it, how it works. And I'm not gonna hold y'all, it got really frustrating. I think I broke like 4 needles. And no, the needles were not the problem. There's like this metal thing that goes at the bottom of the attachment, and your needle has to go through it. So if it's not going through, it's hitting the metal and then the needle's breaking. I just got off the phone with my old sewing instructor, and she basically talked me through how to add this buttonhole and how to do the buttonhole on my sewing machine manually. We're gonna try this buttonhole attachment one more time. Let's say a prayer. Lord, please let this work so that I can make this sweater as efficiently as possible. Amen. Okay, let's try it. It worked. See that right there? Hey! So when I was testing my scrap piece of fabric, the fabric kept getting jammed. So what I realized was that I needed to stabilize the fabric a little bit more by using interfacing. And then on top of that, I just needed to make sure that my needle was exactly in place so it was not hitting that metal. Once I did those two things, it worked completely fine. So the first thing I did was measure how much fabric I needed to fold over the front. I ironed fusible interfacing into those 2 inches that I was going to fold over and then sew, because that's where I'm going to have my buttonholes on one side and my buttons on the other. I ended up folding over 2 inches on both sides. So when I use fusible interfacing, I don't just put the iron directly onto the interface and on the fabric. I added muslin in between my iron and the interfacing. I finished off the hem for the sleeves, and now it's time to actually get into these buttons and buttonholes. If you don't realize by now, I love a good gadget and tool that'll make my life easier when I'm doing my sewing projects. So that spacing tool made marking my buttonholes and buttons so much easier. I know certain gadgets can seem intimidating, like this buttonhole attachment definitely intimidated me, but once I got it, it was so easy. Until it was the slightest bit off and my 4th needle broke and I was about ready to crash out. No! Oh gosh! After all the buttonholes were done, I hand sewed the buttons and then I was done. I love the way it turned out, and let this be a lesson that gadgets are here to help you. I feel like I have a new win now that I have this projector. I feel like I can do so many more projects and not have to worry about a whole day of pattern cutting. I hope you guys enjoyed and subscribe for more content like this.